I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone back to the 2021-22 school year. I do apologize ahead of time as we won't be able to edit this video so much, and along the way I may make mistakes and have to restate myself, so I do want to preface with that. But again, we're entering a very difficult time. It seems like, we were thinking COVID was going to be here and gone, and here we are, we're dealing with it again. And I just want to wish everybody a great year back, and hopefully we can get through and navigate this tough time of dealing with COVID on top of all the other issues that we deal with at the school system. So with that, let's have a great year. Let's work together, do our best to stay positive, and hopefully we can educate our kids and keep them safe, all in the same process. This year, I'm going to do my best to really keep this short. It'll be pretty close to what we went over last year. In order to find the application process, a lot of you obviously are already hired in a position, but in the event that you were looking for other job opportunities, coaching, substituting, whatever, you can find under our Belcourt webpage, under employment opportunities is where you can find the application, and that is under AppleTrack. And I will attach this full list of resources. This will go out to our school-wide email, so you don't have to take notes or whatever. This will all be sent to you here sometime today. Our employee assistance program. Again, we run this through St. Alexis. If you're having any emotional issues, parenting issues, marital, financial or family difficulties, substance abuse, there is a free at no charge to you per the Belcourt School District Employee Benefit Program, up to 8 counseling sessions at no charge through St. Alexis. We do have a contact person, which is typically Carmen Schatcher, where you can call directly, and that number is available. Or if you feel like you need to sit down and talk to, myself, a supervisor, one of our EAP officers is Jessica Williams at the high school. So if you feel like you need to reach out first before you reach out to St. Alexis, those are some people that you could definitely reach out to. Addressing the first policy, which is the AAC, the non-discrimination and anti-harassment policy. We go over this every year. This is basically saying that the district prohibits discrimination and harassment based upon a student's, parents, guardians, or employees' race, color, religion, sex, gender identity, national origin, ancestry, disability, age, or any protected status by law. This, again, it's one of those things where it protects each and every individual based on those protected classes. The policy and the law is very lengthy. I will not go into too much detail about it. Last year, we were required to post the coordinators and the directors of these various entities. So with that, you'll see on page 3 of this, the identified Title IX coordinators are Dr. Shane Martin, our athletic director, and myself, Keith LaValle, as the HR director. The high school and elementary both have social workers through the district. For the elementary, it's Brooke Scott, and for the high school, it's Beverly Davis. Again, if you have any other areas where you feel like harassment is an issue, you can contact me directly under the human resources area. Going over the discrimination and harassment grievance procedure, that is AAC-BR. Again, in a nutshell, I won't go into too much detail. There is an informal complaint and a formal complaint process. Informal is typically where, let's say we have 2 staff members who there's, maybe an issue going on there. The informal allows them to sit down and work it out, whether through mediation, through their supervisor, so on and so forth. The formal grievance procedure does not allow for that. And just keep in mind that anytime we have any type of harassment, there is not an informal process where it's staff against student. So we have to go through the formal process whenever we're dealing with discrimination and harassment as far as the grievance. There are timelines to adhere to. So with the policy, just be mindful of those timelines, whether you're the investigator or you're a respondent, so on and so forth. Moving on. Last year, the Office of Civil Rights enforced by law new sexual harassment guidance. This is going to be almost a repeat from last year's presentation, if you will. Now, just to be clear, those people that were hired prior to the September 15th, 2020, those of you watched the 45-minute video from Meredith Vukolich, who is one of our attorneys that we retain and utilize. She did provide a 45-minute mandatory sexual harassment video. If you watched that last year and you were hired, prior to that date, you do not need to watch it again. However, you will sign the orientation sign-in sheet that specifies that you at least watched this last year. For new employees hired after September 15, 2020, yes, you do need to watch the 45-minute video. We do not have any new administrators or decision makers that would require that new training. So everybody has been trained as far as the responsible training for the designated personnel. So with the sexual harassment and grievance procedure, this is AACBR2. And basically a very, very lengthy document, and this will be explained in its entirety in the 45-minute video with Meredith. And basically sexual harassment is anybody who has actual knowledge, which means, hey, I heard a rumor, so on and so forth. That you being a mandatory reporter, anybody who works in our school system is considered to be a mandatory reporter. If you hear something, notify an administrator, notify myself, Dr. Martin, and get the ball rolling where a determination can be made of what needs to be done. Sexual harassment is a form of harassment based on sex. It is defined as unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and or verbal, written, or physical conduct or communication of sexual nature. And again, this constitutes the quid pro quo, which you do this for me, I'll do this for you. Also, it could be defined as sexual harassment as so severe, pervasive, or objectively offensive, or it just constitutes sexual assault, which could be dating violence, domestic violence, so on and so forth. And this could also happen in the workplace with whether it's a physical or a verbal advance by a staff member to another staff member, a staff member to a student, or a student to a staff member. In there, it does require that the school or the district provides supportive measures. There's the prohibition of retaliation that is specified in there. Again, we encourage and require all of our staff to report sexual harassment, and hopefully that sexual harassment, if you come across that information, that you do report it to the sexual harassment coordinators, which is Dr. Martin or myself. There is a component in here for removal during the investigation if need be. And so again, this is a very, very extensive policy that was written and mandated by the Office of Civil Rights last year. Again, I'm going to go back to the informal and the formal. There is no informal resolution for when there's a violation against the student. In that regard, we follow BIE protocol with the scan, which I'll get into a little bit later, and we do adhere to those guidelines. So with the bureau mandates is that if anytime there is a sexual or a physical, which means a threat against a student to physically hurt them, then BIE protocol requires that we remove the staff member immediately until an investigation is complete. So, moving forward, again, this policy is explained in its entirety with Meredith's video. Staff and student relations, non-fraternization policy, DEBD. Again, this kind of extends from the sexual harassment and leading into that, any adult who is hired through the Belcrest School District should not have any type of inappropriate or sexual relations or relationship with a student. So that is explained in that policy. Drug and alcohol free workplace, DEAA. Again, there is the obligation to be at work, not under the influence of any drugs and alcohol that are illegal. Again, if you have any prescription medications that you need to report, that should be reported directly to me. They will remain confidential. And a list could be provided from your medical provider to me to put in your file in the event that we do some type of suspicion, or if you end up coming up on a random drug screen, that those would be available. We also do pre-employment drug screen, as you know, so any new employees that come on would be screened. We do post-accident for those that are driving vehicles or bus drivers. We do post-accident in the event that there's some type of damage or a multi-vehicle crash. Random tests are typically done on DOT or security sensitive, which people driving vehicles, driving students. We do random, you will be part of that random list. And reasonable suspicion. If we have reason to believe that you appear to be under the influence of drugs and alcohol, we do have an obligation to look into that. And we do some type of screening and pre-assessment before we move forward and say, hey, we need a sample. New policies this year, one that some of you may be aware of, we do have a medical marijuana policy, ACBF, which basically says, and there is a component that I won't elaborate too much on as far as the students, because that'll be covered in the handbook, but the district, this does cover students and staff. The district shall not refuse to hire a person nor discharge, penalize, or threaten an employee solely on the basis of such person's or employee's status as a qualifying patient, card holder, or designated caregiver. The board does retain the ability to prohibit the possession, so you cannot possess your medical marijuana. Even though you're a card holder, you cannot have it actively on you, nor can you actively administer it. And then obviously, by administering, that means take it. And obviously, no distribution, letting other people use it or selling it. Sick leave bank. Another new policy which extends from our already existing protections and supports for sick leave. This is DDAE-A, and basically what this allows is that staff members can participate and volunteer into a sick leave bank, which you can get into, or you can donate at any time. So if you're leaving the system or at any time, you could donate. There is an enrollment time, which is September 1st through September 30th of each school year. In order to be a qualifying member, you have to be a full-time employee hired by the board. 25% of our participation needs to be met. So I think we got approximately 240 staff members. We would need 60 to actually have the policy be enacted. Sick hours, if you decide to, if you're part of it and you want to exit, there is that option there. We do have a form available, which if you would like to enroll into the bank, you can most certainly get in that way. You can get up to 160 hours per year, and then if you have a condition that is long term, you can access some of the sick leave the following year, but it's right now it's set at 160 hours per year. This does cover, if you have a family member who has a long-term condition. There's also the access for maternity leave, and so there's quite a few ways that you can qualify there. Grievance procedure. I am just going to reference for the teachers. You need to see section 12 of the teacher negotiated contract, and you can find that on page 17 on the Belcourt webpage under the About Us section. The licensed support staff could be found in the school board documents under policy DGF, and for classified employee, you can find that under the board doc section DGD. To get into workforce safety, if you're injured on the job, you trip, you fall, you slip. Typical process is either to see your supervisor or to see the school nurse, who will assist you in walking through the forms. If you receive medical attention right away, which means you go to the hospital, you would fill out the whole form in its entirety. If you do not seek medical attention, you slip, you fall, you bruise yourself, but you're going to stay at work, you'd only have to fill out the first part of that form. That is accessible on our webpage, and that would be under the departments, and then you go to HR department. And then I'll go back to, I apologize on this list, I'll go back to the scan process. Again, I touched on it a little bit. The scan process is, there's two tracks, if you will. An incident would be if a staff member said something, let's say unprofessional, to a student, and it wouldn't quite strike to a physical threat or a sexual threat or request in any way. This would be an incident report. This would still be filed with the office in Albuquerque under the Bureau of Indian Education, and we would still process it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the staff member would be removed. In the event that it's classified as a scan, then the staff member would be removed, and the qualifying factors for scan would be physical threat, whether it's an actual physical threat or a physical act, or the threat of it. And the same thing with the sexual. If there was the actual sexual act or the verbal sexual request, that would call for the staff member to be removed immediately. Upon determination of the investigation would decide how we would treat the staff member. So that's basically how the scan process is handled. Again, the last note here is if you were hired after September 15th of 2020, you need to go on and watch the 45-minute video from Meredith Vukovic. We will have a sign-in sheet at the end of the week to verify that everyone has received the orientation packet from the HR office and that the new employees have viewed the sexual harassment policy. So with that, I apologize, I went over a little bit longer than I thought, but with that, I just want to say, let's have a great year. You are valued more than you know, and probably more than you're told, and be safe, and let's have a great year, and let's work hard for our kiddos. So take care.